Experienced parents are an incredible source of knowledge. They have been through the trenches and have lived to tell the tale. Although all parents have unique experiences with their children, there are always generalizable events that may apply to others. These parents' insight about the information, resources, and organizations that have been most useful to them in navigating the world with an adult child with a disability are pearls of wisdom. We have only to tap into that knowledge so that it may benefit parents going through similar experiences. There are many differences in the needs experienced by parents of adults with disabilities when compared to children. Changes in laws, services, and eligibility requirements make adulthood a select experience. We asked these parents some key questions that would get them thinking about their experiences, as well as future advice they had for other parents. Our first question was, what are the greatest differences you've noticed in the needs of your family when it comes to being the parent of an adult with disabilities?
There's been some big differences with my adult children that have disabilities and my youngest that has disabilities. First of all, my older children, there wasn't any place to get information. There was not a lot of support for me when my children were diagnosed, my older children were diagnosed. And today, with my youngest son having disabilities, I've been able to access lots of information. I've had a lot more support. I've been able to take lots of classes from Utah Parent Center and other agencies and learn from that and be able to apply it. It's made school smoother sailing for sure. Dealing with his disabilities with more knowledge has certainly provided lots of opportunities for my son to grow in different ways than it did for my older children.
The difference is when they were children, there were daily issues, daily things that came up, or weekly that you worried about, everywhere from doctor's appointments to, are they going to ever be asked to the prom? Do they have friends at school? Those different things like that. Now that they're adults, it's a lot easier maintenance-wise. They're adults, they're responsible for their own medical, their life, what they're doing daily, living on their own. So that is easier. There are some things that are harder in the sense of, for instance, my one son has health care issues and he's disintegrated, thinking about work where he might miss several days off the job. How are we going to be able to support him if he's not making good enough wages? The positive is he's married, he has children, and that makes his life happier.
Well, a lot of the troubles we face are the same, really. A lot of it's daycare issues. Just trying to make sure that she's well cared for and kept busy. The keeping busy part is probably a little bit harder as an adult.
I think with Zachary, it was probably when our kids left home and got married, and we were still having a child in our home that we're taking care of. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, my husband and I had different ideas about what we were going to do in taking care of him. He kind of thought that we'd be putting him in a group home. I kind of thought we'd be keeping him at home. And so it took a while in communications before we really kind of got that worked out. And I realized that we were keeping him home and moving on, and that's been a good thing. I'm finding respite care is a little bit harder to find. When he was little and kind of that cute little boy, it was really easy for me to find respite care. Just about anybody would take him. And I'm finding that that's getting a little harder to find somebody who wants to take care of a 33-year-old that has total needs. And so that's been kind of a different thing since he was younger. I'm now in what they call the sandwich generation, and having Zachary at home when I have parents to take care of. Most people are available to run and go do, but I guess our biggest thing is just that we have Zach there when we're going into a new phase, and we love him dearly, and we love having him there, and I would not do it any other way. But we have to just kind of rethink things and arrange to have that care that's needed to come in and help with him.
Probably the biggest need for an adult is transportation. And if I could do something differently, I would have really pushed driver's education.
I think that they always need the support. No matter how old they are, no matter where they live, they need the support. They need somebody to say, how are you doing? Great. So I think that they need a lot of prizes and motivation, let's put it that way. So in my experiences, I have kids that live far away. I always tell my kids, everyone, when you get married, you move far away. So mom is not there anymore.
I did notice that we as a family needed to help him, just as we had our other children think about a career, think about employment, thinking about the things that he would like to do once he left home and once he left the school system.
Well, it's harder, I think. Being a parent of a child, I have a son now who's 22 who has autism. And, you know, I want to do things for him because sometimes it's faster. Sometimes I'm in a hurry and I need to find his things and pack his backpack and get him organized. But I know it's important that he do that because how is he going to learn to be organized and find his things? And, you know, the first time I decided it was time for him to ride a bus. And it was hard for me to let him go out into the world alone and ride the bus, but I knew that was important to let him do. And he got lost, and he called me on the phone, what do I do, where, you know, here I am. Or there were times where he didn't show up when he was supposed to, and I was, you know, luckily nowadays we have cell phones, and I could get in touch with him and ask him, where are you? You know, he took college courses to see if that was something he could do, and you know, sometimes I wanted to get in there and help him do his homework and get in touch with his teachers and make sure he was doing okay, but I couldn't. I had to step back and let him experience failure because that was part of figuring out who he was and what he was good at.
These parents had to think in creative ways to meet their own needs and the needs of their adult son or daughter. Their ingenuity and resourcefulness kept opening up opportunities that would otherwise be missed. The transition to adulthood is often a difficult one for families. Now that we have heard some of the difficulties, let's hear some of the tips these parents had to share for successfully coping with the changes. How did you successfully navigate the transition stage into your child's adulthood?
I would say that I just kept taking it one step at a time, and I started it early. I started when he was like 16. And as far as looking into things, and I would say my biggest thing is I just followed my leads. You know, I would talk to people, I would ask questions, and if they guided me a direction, then I would try to look at that and see if it was something that would help with us. I think one of the biggest things was guardianship. It was such a scary thing to go into, and I complained about it. I was not going to do it. I really did not go into it smoothly, but I did follow the leads I needed to, and in time with help, even that I was able to conquer.
Having the knowledge that I have now and learning the things that I've learned has made it much easier. Navigating the system for support networks and help with my son, transitioning him into adulthood, the support that I get from other people, knowing where to go, being able to communicate more effectively with schools and the administrators there has made a world of difference.
Well, I could say that I have been blessed to have a very supportive family. They support me a lot, my kids, my husband, and also I have a circle of friends that have helped me to navigate, as you say, that so dreadful transition.
Well, we're still in the process, being 22 years old, but he is now working, and that's good for him. Sometimes I have to, you know, give him a pep talk. You need to go to school, or I mean, you need to go to work today. This is important. And, you know, sometimes he got reprimanded by his supervisor, and I kind of knew he was going to, but I had to allow it to happen. I couldn't intervene and be the mom and call and make sure everything was okay. I had to just let him learn and be reprimanded by his supervisor when he made mistakes. That was important.
I had thought about it a lot before he got there. But once I found somebody who really was helpful to me, I put them in my day timer and I used them a ton. And I asked for them to form other spokes so I could get other people to help me, even parents. That's how I've linked with parents to make sure that if they know somebody that I can possibly work with, I'm going to call them.
Experiencing success in transitioning to adulthood is not something that is achieved alone. As these parents have expressed, many individuals, groups, organizations, and state agencies have stood by these parents and lent their support to achieve success. Do you recall thinking that a certain organization or that certain information was invaluable to your experience for success?
For me, it's always been Utah Parent Center. They're my heroes. My youngest son was diagnosed very early on, and like I said, my adult children with disabilities, I lived in a different state, and there weren't any organizations where I could go and seek out help. I learned everything the hard way. Being able to find agencies out here in Utah, and especially Utah Parent Center, has enabled me to live life in a whole new way with my youngest son.
Actually, I thought of three in particular that really helped me. Zachary got on with Services for People with Disabilities. He was one of the fortunate ones that got on back when they first started, probably, but it was back in 1988. And so he had services with them. And the support coordinators, I communicated with them often. That to me was one of the biggest tricks in transitioning is that I communicated with people about my needs. And they really guided me into some of the places I could look and some of the things I could do to help him. The second place that I was thinking about was the Utah Parent Center, actually. I started to, back in like 1986 or 87, I went to my first training with them, and I've been rubbing shoulders with them ever since. And their trainings were invaluable in helping me move forward to that stage. And in particular, Family Links had classes on like guardianship, on trust, some of those kind of things that come with going into that adulthood. And I found going to those were just really invaluable to me in knowing some of the steps I needed to take and in applying them. And then the third place was Guardianship Associates. I keep thinking it was at Family Links that I heard of them. I might be wrong on that one, but guardianship was really scary for me, and they took me step by step through it and made it so that I could actually get through it.
The Vocational Rehabilitation Center, Independent Living Center, some individual therapy that my son was getting. All of those have been invaluable to me and to my son.
Well, my son Troy had some experience with vocational rehabilitation, but he was able to get employment without their services. But it was great to learn more about them. Right now he's taking some college courses, and he's become familiar with the Disability Resource Center at the college, and that's been really helpful for him to know that he has some extra supports that he needs to be successful through school. And you know, we've had to support him. Mom and Dad have had to help him a little bit with getting organized and being successful with his college courses. And I kind of give him a hard time now. I say, you're smarter than you knew you were. And I've been really proud of him that he's worked so hard to go after the things that he wants to fulfill his dreams.
Be part of different advocacy groups, from the Learning Disabilities Association to CHAD, to the Down Syndrome Association, to Big Macs, Mothers of Autistic Kids. All of those support groups are huge and made a difference in my life. as my children were going through everything. I don't know what I would have done without those supports.
Even though these parents had resources and organizations to turn to for some much appreciated help and advice, it's the reality of the matter that unique situations arise. These parents know best what it's like to be ever vigilant about the needs of an adult son or daughter with a disability. They're aware that many other parents will be walking the same path that they have, and they're eager to transfer their knowledge and wisdom in an effort to increase their knowledge and ease their path. What are some of the most important pieces of wisdom you would share with other parents or adults with disabilities?
Educate yourself, educate yourself, educate yourself. Knowledge is power. You're not alone. It's okay to have meltdowns yourself. Be nice to yourself. Be compassionate with others, but also be compassionate with yourself. I think that as parents, we tend to be a little hard on ourselves, and we get caught up in the day-to-day responsibilities that we have, and sometimes it's pretty tough. But my words of wisdom would mostly be to educate yourself. Find places that offer classes. Knowledge really is power. It will enable you to help your child and even yourself cope in ways that you never could have imagined before. Sharing your story, sharing your experiences, not being afraid in society to let your child be who they are is very important. Not everybody's going to accept your child with open arms, but that's okay because you're there. And you are the one who has your arms open, and set an example for the community, and try and help them learn how to accept your child, because your child and your adult child is going to be the next generation, and they're all a part of our own community. So I think that really not being afraid and going out there and speaking your mind and advocating for your child is the best thing that you can do.
Look for help very early. Not just sit and say, yes, my kid is like this, I cannot do anything, what can I do? And look for help in the schools when they are kids. Look for help in the community, and don't wait for the help to come to you. You have to go out and look for it. You'll find it.
I would say that it's to start early, to start early on, to make sure to communicate with others, to follow any leads that come your way, and just to press forward, you know, even when you're hitting those roadblocks, because oftentimes you'll hit those things that say, no, we can't help you, but there really is a way that they can. So just move forward.
Educate yourself about your child's disabilities, about supports and services that they'll need, about accommodations that they might need. Get to know other parents so you can relate as far as problems that you're going through. And also to look at other youth that are farther along than your child to see what it's going to be like in high school and as an adult.
Well, a long time ago, I saw a saying someplace, and the saying said, letting go is hard until you see what not letting go looks like. And that just hit me in the heart to know that I really love my son, and I'm willing to help my children as much as I can. But one day we were talking, because he knows I teach these classes and teach other families about transition. One day I was talking about teaching families to think about what their child wants to do, and he looked at me, and he was like in a sophomore in high school, and he said, well, Mom, I don't want to live with you guys forever. And my just immediate, without even thinking, well, I don't want you to live with me forever. And it's not that I wouldn't be willing to have him live with me if he needed to, but it just gave him a chance to get off his mind. I don't know if he thought, maybe I thought I was going to keep him forever, but it gave him a chance to say what he really had in mind and what his plan was. And also it gave me a chance to say, oh no, I want you to have your own life. I want you to reach the goals and the dreams that you have.
I think the most important thing is to be educated and be an advocate for your child. Recognize that every child is different. Find what your child's strengths are and look for a program that will maximize your child's strengths and that will help them to be active and happy. And of course, as parents, that's all we want for our kids is that they can be happy and fulfilled. So they need to be educated and find what program works best for their child.
I believe that each child has an ability. I just started that these 3 gap cabinets, for example, they belong to you. And with the points that you earn it in home, you can buy whatever your favorite cereal, you can buy your chocolate cookies, whatever you can buy it with the points that you have earned at home. So this is the place that you're going to save all these things. This belongs to you, because when you out, I used to do it with signs, you know, when you go out and live by yourself, no more mama, no more mommy for everything. No. So you know how to live.
To set your plan up and then try and give your special person free rein. I am constantly calling David to make sure he's done A, B, or C, and it's just recently that I've realized I don't know who's going to be calling him when I'm 6 feet under. So it's just a question of trying to give them their own space because you set it up so you don't have to worry about it.
But it's hard being a parent because you want to protect your children. You don't want them to get hurt. You don't want anything bad to happen. But they need to experience the good and the bad. Just allowing our kids to take risks. I think all of us, you know, with or without disabilities, part of learning when we grow up is we take risks and sometimes we fail and we learn from those failures. And sometimes it's hard to let our kids with disabilities fail because we don't want them to get hurt or we don't want them to fail because it's hard. But I think it's very important in growing up that you're allowed to take risks and allowed to fail because that's where we learn. I was injured, I received a spinal cord injury when I was 2 years old, so I grew up using a wheelchair. And my parents were great at, you know, I had 3 other siblings that didn't have disabilities and I was expected to do chores. And I, you know, was expected to live by the same rules that my siblings did. And I was allowed to walk to and from school on nice days. And I remember, you know, sometimes I had to crawl up and down stairs, and my mom said it was hard to watch this little child crawl up and down stairs. But it showed me that I could do that if I ever needed to. I remember the first time my dad threw me on the back of a horse. My mom said she had to turn around and go in the house. But she still allowed it to happen so that it could experience. And I did fall off the horse, and my dad brushed me up and put me back on. So I think that's important, to allow our kids to experience life and to fail, because that's part of learning.
Have high expectations. Expect your child to do their chores, to have jobs. Don't necessarily protect your child. Let your child try things, and if they fail, at least they have the support system of the school and the family, which is something that they won't necessarily have as an adult. Let them learn from their experiences.
I think that one of the most important things that we learned with Heidi is that a lot of people didn't really know her personally, but they knew myself and my husband. And because they knew Rod and I, they were receptive to Heidi. Her first job was with people that knew us from our church association, and so they were willing to hire her and help her out in a small, cute little job. So keep positive connections going. You encourage community access, especially in high school, not so much in middle school and elementary, but where they actually leave the school, hop in a car or a van and go to a job site or a volunteer center, or for whatever they're doing for a period of time, at an office, cleaning, a greenhouse, store, whatever it is. These children with special needs and teenagers, they need extra time to transition into things and adjust to settings and feel more at peace. And so little by little, if we start in high school, by the time they're 22, it'll be like, I can do that. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years.
The biggest things I'd say is don't just look for a job, look at internships, volunteering, and also what classes can be taken at school. For instance, my one son volunteered at a haunted house. He was taken, one of the makeup artists then took him and trained him to be a special effects makeup artist. With that, he was able to go on to adulthood and actually get jobs in television and movies being a makeup artist because of all that volunteer experience. My other son, through an internship through the high school, was able to intern at Channel 2 and doing the news. Through that experience, he was able to put that on his resume, and he was one of the few college graduates in his field that already had experience, so it helped him to get hired. That son also took different classes starting in 9th grade to look at different careers. He was very gifted in art, but we didn't know what field. So during the next 4 years, he took everything from art to jewelry making to architecture, and worked on the high school television station, which let him know what area he wanted to focus on as an adult. Don't wait for somebody else to come up with a career for your child. Invent it, create it. Look at the different people that you have relationships with. What are different things that you can look at as far as careers? What are different areas that your neighbors work in? Community places, the grocery store, doctors. My one son, Dan, has a prosthetic ear. With that ear, we contacted his doctor and asked if Dan could do an internship under him. Not only was the doctor willing to teach Dan how to do his prosthetic ears, he said if Dan wanted, he'd give him that section of the business. Dan didn't select to do that, but he did do the internship, and as a makeup artist, he learned how to make up dead bodies, prosthetic arms, and ears, which he has used in his career.
I think parents need to think about what is my son or daughter going to be doing for themselves socially, not part of us, not family reunions, not having family barbecues and things, but where they can get on, even on whatever the train is that goes up to Lagoon, where they can get a group of adults to go up and go to Lagoon or go to the train museum up in Ogden. Those kinds of things I think are really important. Also getting resources in so you're not my age and still trying, like I said, to drive or do all these things, to try and pool with parents, to try and join resources, to try not always to feel that you have to have state, federal funding, that you can do it on your own if you think about it, if you use available resources. And if you think they're not there, get a group of parents together and brainstorm what you all need and then how you think you could do it the very best you can without either having to use some application process which just takes tons of time.
What the viewer can take away from this is that there is no substitute for the caring, resilience, and unrelenting support offered by a primary caretaker. It's almost always the case that parents are their son or daughter's greatest advocate.
Public policy advocacy is important. It's all the laws that cover individuals with disabilities from Section 504 to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to the Americans with Disabilities Act only became possible because parents and consumers with disabilities took the time to get involved in the political arena and advocate for those services and state that those services weren't there and that they were needed and valuable. Our children owe the success that they have to individuals that have taken the time to do public policy advocacy. We have those services in place now. On the other hand, those services can go away at any time. Legislation can change and funding can change. In my time period, I have helped with preschool services to even have those available. Services like informed choice through vocational rehabilitation, independent living services, early intervention services. All of those became possible because of public policy advocacy. Think about those things. Public policy advocacy does not necessarily have to take a lot of time. It can be anywhere from 15 minutes a year to contact your local legislator and senator and tell about your child's needs and services, to getting more involved. I'm a public policy junkie. I love going up to the Capitol and putting more time in. The reason I got involved in it is I found out my story and what is happening to my children really does influence others and makes a difference, and that we can help and change public policy and increase funding if we'll just get involved.
Never underestimate your role in expanding opportunities for your adult with disabilities. After all, your child will be the ultimate beneficiary. For more information on any of the topics discussed, or to find resources in your area, please contact the Utah Parent Center at 801-272-1051, or our toll-free number is 1-800-468-1160, or visit our website at www.utahparentcenter.org.